All right, awesome. I think we got most people out of the waiting room. So hello and welcome to this EBC seminar. We are doing a two-part seminar tonight where we will be me, Axie Oasis. Wade has been working with the Elite Breeders Club to put together some really interesting info. Tonight, I will be talking with Prophecy, co-founder of the Elite Breeders Club. We're going to be discussing season 18, talk about everything that we have, seen in playing through the season, talk about what we might think we will see in the off season, any potential nerfs and anything surrounding builds that we think might be overpowered from this season and what we think might be happening going forward in the overall, Axie sphere kind of coming in the next couple of weeks. And then in the second part, I will be speaking with Langley about crypto security, talking about using a Trezor, what the perks are of having your assets secured on this hardware, and the idea behind making sure that everything that we have and have been working to are safe and secure. So for those two parts, stay tuned, and yeah, we're going to jump in with Prophecy right now, who can introduce yourself, and yeah, maybe we can just hop right into it.
Hey everyone, this is Prophecy. Thanks for joining us today. Really excited to have you guys here. I'm going to be talking to Wade about the end of the season, what happened. We all know that there was a huge uptick at the beginning of season 18. A lot of new players came in, a lot of new builds, and then towards the end, there's a lot of negative news, a little bit of FUD. So a lot of people are wondering what's next and around the corner. So we thought this topic would be good for all of you guys about, like, from the arena perspective, what might be strong in the upcoming season and what you guys should be looking out for. So I'm going to start by asking Axie Oasis some questions. So what do you think in general about season 18? What ended up coming up as strong? And what are people complaining about to get nerfed and things along that nature?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that everyone's seen the big one. If you look at the top 100, really top 50, you see a ton of the grass snakes. People have been running basically really cheap, a zero cost, 2 poison ticks. Combine that with either some winghorn or a toothless bite. Get onto your backliner. If you don't have something to either, get rid of the poison ticks, it's just really a pain to kind of just drains your health. Anything like that. You have a lot of like some garish worm kind of combos with that. I've seen some combos with, I guess it's juggling the triple hit to get the bonus hits on there as well. So you get some really unique ways where people have found a way to get to your backliner or your second, or you're past your tank, and just kind of slowly kind of bleed you bleed you dry, for lack of a better phrase there. And I think that's probably the most overpowered. It's obviously been the most talked about this season, and that's one of them. So I think that I think the developers are definitely taking a look at that. I mean, I know the Geo has obviously spoken to that specifically, and with, like I said, zero cost for that. Adding 2 poison ticks is definitely probably a little strong, and I think the entire space is looking at that. I think that the Terminator builds have obviously been talked about as well. I've seen a ton of them. I've seen a ton of Duskinators as well. Everyone's been dusking a ton of different builds for higher health, higher speed, and once you find a way to breed that out, it's extremely powerful. I mean, I was watching, the first time I ever played Terminator build, I didn't focus enough on speed. I bought like a 36, 38, speed reptile, and then I noticed, I'm like, oh wow, like there are these 42 speed reptiles, and like they are significantly better. And now you go in, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm playing against a 46 speed dusk Terminator, who's got like, I think it's about like 20 or 40 more like health points, and those are really tough to kill if you don't have a zero cost on your backliner and get through all that. It's very difficult. So I think that those two are definitely the most talked about, and the way in which you know I would say that Terminators get nerfed. It's going to be interesting to see how the devs think about that. I've heard differing things. I've heard potentially decreasing the damage on lagging. I've heard the idea of potentially decreasing the shield or the attack on Chomp. So I'm sure they're taking a look at that and really thinking about it, because it is kind of annoying having people just kind of spam that one build. But at the end of the day, I think that the Terminator was kind of created to counter a lot of stuff that was out there in the market in the earlier seasons. And if you really decrease the value of something that is unique and takes in, a lot of different cards, takes in multi-class cards on different builds, I don't think that the team wants to kind of like stifle that kind of, for lack of a better term, innovation, right? Where people are figuring out really cool, unique ways to build out these Axies, these teams, and how they fit into a total team build. So I think they have to be very, very careful as to, how much they, nerf those cards, because I think they want to see people breeding out unique stuff and making the game change and grow. So I would be, I wouldn't expect it to be huge, but balanced, I would say, when it comes to Terminator specifically, and the grass snake, and kind of those are the ones that pop up top of my head.
So we've seen a lot of people are breeding Terminators, buying Terminators, and we've seen an extreme spike downwards in prices of Terminators and breeders and whatnot. Do you think this is something we should be looking at? Maybe now's the time. People are overfutting it. They think it's going to be over nerfed. The price is going to the dirt. Maybe it's a good time to pick some of these up. Would you be looking at it if you were breeding and setting up for the preseason, or would you wait on the Terminators?
Oh, that is a really good question. For me, I mean, the way I think that there's some real like price discrepancies at the moment. There's a ton of tools that at the EBC to figure out, historical pricing and see how builds have been trending over time, which I've found that data incredibly helpful as I've, looked through it. And something that I always kind of noticed on my own, but that's because I just, log a lot of hours in the marketplace. But that data was very, very beneficial, to be able to go through and see. And for me, looking at, what I'm thinking about as I set up my, for my next season, as I think about for myself or for my scholars, I do think that they are, relatively cheap. And if you find something with good genes, good potential, I think it has been bred a lot, and there are just a lot more out there. And as a better version comes out every single time, right? You have, like I said, I bought my 36 or 38 speed, and then I bought a 42 speed rep, and now the premium is, this 46 speed dusk. So as new things come up and counter what that creation is, prices should reflect that. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty powerful build, and I think depending on what you are going to be doing, for me, I believe that there is a good way to counter Terminators. I run what I've been grinding in season 18 with, I'm like 2,500, like top 2,500 players right now. I've been grinding with a double Aqua team with a dual blade Nemo midliner, and then a Biden's Koi in the backliner with Lambiden's Koi. So that's kind of how I have countered it, and I've found it pretty good, even beating the Dusk version of the Terminator. So as you think about the top level of the meta, I don't think that there are that many players running it, but there's just a swath of, I don't know, 1,600, 1,700 to 2,000 where MMR, that is, where you just see a ton of them, and you'll play literally every game for 20 games. Like I've basically played one every single time, like kind of grinding through there. My scholars tell me they run into them, they're finding difficulties with it. So if you are just trying to create a build to maximize SLP gain, at a good price. I think it's obviously something you should look at if you're trying to be an absolute elite PvP player. I think the top of the leaderboard is always going to find a way to build around it. Like I personally built around that, and that's, that's kind of where, I ended up. I'm like, yeah, 2,600 MMR and like top 2,500 players or so, like at the moment. But that's kind of how I worked around, thought about working around that build. Hopefully that kind of answers the question.
Yeah, and I think Sora, who we also have around EBC, he's actually running a triple Aqua and almost hit rank 1, and he's been running similar teams to that, some variations.
Yeah, he's got a real interesting team. Definitely go check that out.
Yeah. So speaking about Aquas, there's a lot of complaints, and mostly the scholar and lower MMR community. It's just about general Aquas. They believe that Aquas should be nerfed and will be nerfed. What do you think about just normal Aquas and just being overstated, and the complaint from the lower MMR community? Do you think that's going to be impacted by the devs?
Yeah, it's another really good one to think about. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people who have logged, hours in the arena have seen like that classic, Nemo goldfish risky Aqua, where you just I've literally seen 3 of that exact same build as a team at relatively decent levels of MMR, mid 15 to 1800, probably higher than that. And I think it's a little silly that you have that out there. When I think about the devs and how they are going to balance the team, balance the game, I just don't know how it would affect so many people, which I guess is kind of the point. But I don't see them making. I think that a lot of these changes and a lot of these nerfs are going to be on the margin. I mean, I've gone through 2 cycles of card changes, basic damage changes and shield changes, and a lot of it's on the margin to get certain cards in. From what I understand, is a lot of it's on the margin to get underused cards used more, or take away something that's like super imbalanced in the game. Last season I saw that with the discard bug, nerfing basically everything to do with the damage surrounding all the cards on, a standard, pincer, parasite, snail, discard bug. Before that, I mean, people saw, the nerfs with piranha and final shot, the 0 cost birdtail. I don't play with birds that much, so that's my bad. But they took those from like 140 down to 120 damage. So you see these balance changes kind of on the margin, but a lot of people still are using these cards, and I think it's more. I think everyone should. I would calm down a little bit more and just remember that it should be more on the margin and not total overhaul of a team.
Yeah, and on that note, since I've been around a little bit longer than most of the guys here, I just want to say historically, they've made nerfs not on the actual effect, like how the stun works and things like that, but the actual numbers of the card, like the stats, the damage, and the shield. Yeah. So historically, that's how they've impacted the balance changes. But now with Battle V2 looming, and we don't know what they're going to do with effects and whatnot, after that, things might change. We have no idea how far out that is. But I think just waiting for that without a specific date and just holding off on growing, especially when prices are so low, is a mistake a lot of people are making right now. As they could really be expanding their operation with how prices are and how low cost per egg is and the things on the market.
Yeah, overall breeding. And you can see some of the, like you mentioned with the, Terminators specifically, but, sometimes when you look at like some more unique breeds or some more unique parts on, whatever the Axie is. And I know a lot of this comes back to, me, you, anyone else who's been in the game for a while. You just get used to seeing certain pricing and you have an understanding of, okay, this seems relative to cheap or expensive on whether you're looking at it on ETH or dollar terms. And yeah, I would agree with you that I think there is a ton of value on the market at the moment, for sure.
Yeah, so a couple other builds I want to talk about with you is, so people talk about cute bunny and antennas. They've seen it a lot in the tournament with Vinapot winning the tournament a couple tournaments ago. And then, we see Indies and Elijah talking about it. A lot of the top MR, we see the combination of Cute Bunny and Bug Signal, or just Cute Bunnies, just Bug Signals.
Yeah.
What do you think about these combo cards, if they're going to get nerfed?
Yeah, that's a great one. The Cute Bunnies, for me, well, actually, you know what? I'll start with the antennas. So for antenna, I really only find it annoying or, overpowered if you really have a antenna on every single Axie. So like a 3-team antenna build. And it is annoying, and you do have to kind of balance around, like manage around the, your energy, but I haven't found that to be as difficult to beat as some of the other builds. And I think this also comes back to my original point around the idea behind this crossbreeding and people coming up with unique builds, like putting bug parts on all different Axies. I've seen Cute Bunny teams that are Aquas with a plant tank. I don't know if I've seen one with reps, but I'm sure they're out there. But it's definitely interesting, and I think that they want to promote the idea of having unique builds. So I don't necessarily think I don't see that one as overpowered. I think the Cute Bunny is very, very strong. When you play a fear team, like towards the end of the game, if they have faster Axies than you, which is tough, because you have the bug, because you're adding the bug cards to something usually like Aquas. It is tough, because if you get behind in that kind of fight, and then you can't shake it, right? Like I have a Biden's, like you can't shake a stun. And I think you can't shake the fear, which I think a lot of people misunderstand. If you have something like Mint or anything that's like, oh, I'm going to cleanse this, or I'm going to ditch this, whatever's on me. If you have fear or stun or anything like that, you're not cleansing it. You're burning the card. Like if you're stunned and you play a 0 cost, you're not cleaning the stun. Like you just are missing a 0 cost. Same way, if you have a fear, you have that usually for 2 turns. So I definitely misplayed that the first time I went through it, right? Like I played my 0 cost and I was like, oh, cool. Like I'm going to play my 0 cost. I'm going to get rid of the fear, and then boom, my attacks are going to go through. No, that doesn't happen, because, fear disables your next 2 attacks. So I don't get the cleanse. But I think once people like figure out a way to kind of go around those, I'd say it's a stronger card, but I don't know. Again, I think, like you said, I think it's on the margin. Like you said, I don't think they're going to get rid of it going from 2 turns to 1 turn. I think it might be of fear on something like Cute Bunny. I think it's going to be more of, maybe it's less damage, or maybe it's less shield. Like maybe it's like a little less tanky. I'm not sure the exact damage and shield on that off the top of my head, but I think it's like, again, more on the margin, if anything. And like you said, you need to build around that, like those combo teams, right? Like you have to be able to use skill to put together a team with different types of parts on different types of Axies to like get a team that's working in unison. So for me, that's unique, and the devs probably want to like encourage, that kind of like, that kind of thinking. But that's just my opinion on that one.
Yeah, and so last build I want to talk about is towards the end of the season, a lot of people were trying to figure out how to beat Terminators, and a lot of these high shield reptile builds, Doubletalk Birds, Doubletalk Beasts, some other things came out as kind of popular and things people tried to breed. What do you think about these? And do you think that these will be touched? Because pretty much everything that came out is strong against anything that was overbred. People talk about nerfs, right? So even the Doubletalk people were asking me a lot if I think it's going to get nerfed, and if they should be breeding this right now.
Yeah, so Doubletalk I can speak to a lot better, because I have a couple Axies that use it, and I've played around with it and obviously faced it a bunch. So for me, I think Doubletalk's extremely powerful. The idea of going, you're going right under the shield, and then your following attack is as well. And when you're kind of trying to counter these like really beefy reptiles, if you can pair that with bug beast damage, that's always something that I was trying to do, like kind of in my builds. Like I had double talk on a backline Aqua, and I have pliers on my tank and my midliner. So when I started playing around with that combination, the synergies there were crazy. But double talk has no shield, and it still costs an energy, and 80 damage isn't great, but it is straight to the face. So you're bypassing all the shield. So I definitely do get that, but it is a relatively weak Axie. So if you have, it is a weak card. When you put it on your Axie and you don't have any shield, there's only so many ways that I think you can really kind of play with it, like kind of in a team. And I don't think that it necessarily is I don't think that one's overly overpowered, in my opinion, because having used it, I find the lack of shield kind of holds me back a little bit, like not being able to put up any shield at all with that card. And again, depending on what you're facing, right? If you have it on beast card, if you have it on a beast Axie and you have a lot of beast damage, yeah, it's going to be super helpful to get through some of the tankiest stuff, right? Like reps and plants. But I think that's probably the only place that it's really, really strong. And that's, to me, probably just where it's gonna stay. I don't see that one. I don't see that one as much personally, given the lack of shield.
Yeah, so let's I want to take this a little bit step further, and you mentioned it a little bit, and we talked about some deeper implications of nerfs. So if we think about it very logically, if something gets nerfed, then what it came out, so there's a reason a certain Axie was valuable, like the Terminator. Right. And it counters a certain build or certain variety of builds that were prevalent, and that's why it came out as strong. So if you think logically, you would think if the Terminator was nerfed, the things it countered and everything else that was bad against it would have increasing value. So there's always a push and pull with all of these builds and nerfs and what's going to happen with prices. And a lot of the community here are breeders over arena players. So if we can go through some of these builds, talk about what they actually counter, what they're strong against, and then we can look a step further and think what we can try to buy right now that might end up being more valuable when all these other nerfs come out.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so starting with Terminators. So what are Terminators strongest against? For me, I probably think it's anything that's high octane, because you just basically want to go through, do damage, etc. And the Terminator it's a double stun card. It's a double stun Axie, right? Your idea is I want to slow this down, get attacked, they get stunned, leave them on stun. They're gonna have to churn through energy to do that. And I think a lot of people have found a way to get around it, like me, using Bidens. People use the Cuckoo Aqua. People are using plant backliners with Bidens on it as well. There's a lot of zero costs as the way to shake a stun and put up some shield and be able to kind of outlast them. So maybe if Terminators are less troubling, you basically can focus on stuff that might actually do better against it. I don't know exactly how the Terminator gets nerfed. Like you said, usually they don't change the ability of a card. It's really just the damage and shield. So I would say that anything that can outlast kind of a Terminator, or do more damage against it, I think is probably going to be the best. The problem is that it's on every type of build, right? So you have, most commonly, it's going to be your reps and your dusks. I don't see as many bugs out there kind of in PvP play, but yeah, I think it's basically anything high damage that would be able to get through it if you don't need zero cost as much to work around the Terminator. You don't have to be worried as much around the amount of damage they're going to be doing into you. If they nerf the damage from lagging or from chomp or something like that, which is my opinion. So if they're easier to kill, anything that has high damage might be more valuable. So anything that has like I said, Aquas, or something that is fast, that is going to be faster than a baseline Terminator, and has some bugger beast damage and maybe doesn't have a zero cost that's getting, discounted in the market right now. Cause it's like, oh, like how could I play this in a backliner? Because, I don't have any zero cost cards on it. But maybe if there's less shield and less damage coming through from the Terminators, maybe some stuff that's non-zero cost backliners with like high bug beast damage with enough speed, to stay ahead of the laggings from it. Maybe that is probably something that would be, ripe for some price discovery, in my opinion.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Aquas. So why were the Aqua, before this whole Terminator fad, Aquas were the big thing, different kinds of Aquas. And some people are thinking that the Aquas might also get nerfed along with Terminators. I think Jihos might have made some kind of quick mention along those lines during the time he said that he's gonna look at nerfing things like the grass snake. So if the Aquas do get nerfed, what were the Aquas actually good against originally for the people that haven't been around a long time that might end up being more valuable now?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, to my knowledge, the way that, I wasn't there at the creation, but, for me, the very beginning was, the standard plant beast bird idea of, Axie as kind of this starter build. You've got a good tank up front, you have huge damage from the beast in the midline that can wipe through a tank, and then you have a really high damage fast Axie in the bird. This basically got the double aqua, in my opinion, is a direct counter to that. And that's how I teach my scholars. I'm like, you're going to see a lot of plant beast bird. You have a double aqua team, you should absolutely smoke them. Obviously, aquas do a ton of damage to beasts, and you give a little bit of elevated damage relative to birds. So that was really how it kind of came about. But yeah, when it comes to double aqua, that was, kind of how I think about it. Maybe if they nerf the idea of double aquas, you could see, something around beast bird getting better from a pricing standpoint. I don't follow beast pricing as much. I probably only have like one or two in my total inventory, so hard to say. But I would imagine that, Rimp beat. I mean, when I first was looking at Axies, I mean, beasts were pretty much like floor Axies. Like this is like 3-4 months ago when I first jumped in. If you wanted to get like a Rimp double nut, like kind of like standard high damage beast, which has kind of been adapted now, right? You see a lot of like more like dual blade with other kind of combos of cards on those with Revenge Arrow and other things like that, rather than the true like Rimp beast. So the beasts themselves have definitely kind of evolved as well. But if you saw a double aqua, back to your original question, if you see double aqua get nerfed, there should be on the margin some increase in value of beast bird, because that's, in my opinion, the most natural like first counter to it, right? That was created to defeat that, and now if the double aqua is less powerful, you should see an increase for those.
Yeah, so that's all great information.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to talk about before we introduce Langley is what season 19 could actually look like. So we think these nerfs are going to come out. What other changes could they make even before? So I'm not talking about V2. That's a step further. That's a little bit of speculation. But season 19 could even release before V2, and there's a decent chance it will. So what kind of things do you think will come out as strong again, just as a conclusion?
Yeah, so going into season 18, I think that, going into season 19, the one thing that I guess I'm looking for, despite all of the balance changes that we might see, wow, it's probably just going to be, I think it's going to be more of these unique builds. I think it's going to definitely be more of the crossbreed. I would say higher skill to breed Axies. When I originally started playing, it was all pures. Everyone was like I want 6/6 this, 6/6 that, pure aqua, pure rep. And I think as we've moved forward in this game, people have understood the value of having natural, kind of counters to everything, right? Like if you have if I have an aqua, I don't have bug beast damage, I'm not going to be able to get through the tanks as easily. And rather than, beating your head against the wall and trying to like just toss cards into it, it's finding a creative way to get through that. So going into the next season, I think you're going to definitely see those Axies from a PvP standpoint be in demand. And for me, either breeding Axies or whatever you're putting on the marketplace should, feed that. Because I think the best players are going to be looking to incorporate a balanced team that has multiple ways of dealing damage. I think that's one of them for sure. And that's kind of how I think about it with my teams and what I'm using for myself and what I want to incorporate to scholars. It's after you get through the base level of purity at the highest level of the game, you need to have a balanced team, which is going to require some crossbreeding or unique builds. So I would continue to look for things that incorporate their counter, right? So having, reptiles that have aqua damage or something like that, or, like the standard Aquas having, bug beast damage to get through the tanks and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to step out in a little bit so you can introduce Langley and get started on the next topic. But thanks everyone for listening to me. And I'm going to let Oasis introduce Langley.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for joining us, Prophecy.